And that's why all anybody's saying in negative to all these moves is they still got Cam Newton at quarterback, If you see what he's doing right now, before the signing day, even like signing even happens, before the league, in the tampering period, what he's doing, let's assume that he'll be okay to make a move if that doesn't work out again next year. You know, it's just like the mindset of Bill right now is changing into a much more new school mindset, but it's because he is potentially in his last chapter of this entire thing. It's interesting because that is going to affect everybody. Yesterday, the Patriots, and since yesterday, Trent Brown re-signed Cam Newton, Judon, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Aguilar, Kendrick Byrne, Devon Godchaux, Jalen Mills, Henry Goose Anderson. They re-signed Mr. Wise, Dante Hightower, and Patrick Chung come back off the opt-out. Their entire team, in the matter of 24 hours, went from, they're going to grind it out, they're going to win some games, it's going to be close games, all of a sudden to, this team is going to win 10 games again. This team's going to win 11 games somehow because of the amount of pieces they have. And you just assume that Josh McDaniels, you assume Ernie Sims, is that his name?
Adams.
Ernie Adams.
Ernie Sims is a great
athlete.
Yeah, great athlete.
Out of Florida State.
Yep.
Got drafted to Detroit, played for the Eagles, played for the Colts. Great man. He's now a player development person, I think, for FIU, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Shout out to Ernie Sims. Ernie Adams, though, he's there. Bill Belt. Let's assume that they will be able to figure out how to make this a profitable outcome in the end. But if they win games, it's going to change how everybody views free agency because everybody knows if somebody gets cut from the Patriots, everybody in the league wants to sign them. If it's good enough for Bill, it's good enough for me. That is a mindset for a lot of people. This could change things entirely going forward.
And a big conversation, this whole season was how the draft, they're so terrible. Bill's been so terrible in the draft, but because we don't have to sign guys like the Colts do because they've been so good in the draft, we don't have to worry about that aside from our punter, Jake Bailey. And so we can just spend all this cash on guys
who are
free
agent?
He's got, I believe, one more year left.
A lot of people are tweeting, we need a punter. It's like, no, you don't. That guy is unbelievable.
Stud.
He is. He bombs balls, that guy up there. All the key places it feels like they got in the NFL now in 2021, got to have a tight end.
Yep.
Got to have a good tight end. Now they have 2 stud tight ends if Cam Newton can play. Everybody talks about how bad Cam Newton is, and there's a couple plays that he had last year, numerous plays that he had last year that were not good. Tough to watch.
Yeah.
Tough to watch. But there was also some plays last year where you're like, oh, there it is. Like that's the Cam.
Yeah.
And then you listen to that interview he gave on the I Am Athlete podcast where he's like, I'm not going out like that. You would assume he has a lot to prove. But boy, that fucking Patriots team, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. But 24 hours later here, all of a sudden the Patriots are in real conversation again. And I assume that was by design. The fact that Bill Belichick, the man who is at the top of everybody's football, the fact that he's going all in and doing this, I think this will have a ripple effect. Like years down the road, it's like, hey, remember Bill, whenever he built his last team, he went all in, built that team from cash and everything like that. Is this a turning of the tide, you think, in the NFL, that a lot more people will start to do this as the salary cap goes up to $250 million, they're saying, in 5 years from now?
But, I think 3 years from now, these deals won't look that bad. I think that because there were so few teams in competition for some of these players, even though he overpaid, it wasn't an overpayment to where you would typically see had there been a bunch of teams with cap room. Because teams are so tight on cap room, the marketplace and the agents are willing to take deals. I mean, Will Fuller's trying to hold out for a huge deal. Nobody wants to pay him that money because he's an eight-game starter. He's not 16. And that's what's going on with the receiver market. That's why we're having a little bit of congestion there. But for the most part, these agents have decided, look, there's no market. There's no other team getting money. I better take the deal. It's a good deal. It's an overpaid deal. Maybe it's not a top echelon deal, but I'll take it. Look, Warren Buffett and Belichick have a lot in common. And they constantly go against the grain. And I think this is one of those instances where Belichick felt like, I got to make my team better. But the value of my team isn't very good in terms of the skill level. I've got to improve. And we see Buffett do that sometimes when he takes on company. People say, why would he buy that company? And 3 years later, it looks like the right idea.
Shout out Warren Buffett creating Sirius basically as his own radio because he wanted to build more cars, which he owns all of them. So congrats. Shout out Warren Buffett for helping us out directly. Lombardi. So, for me, my weight comes in phases. Okay, my weight, my body weight. all right, and I'll get publicly body shamed because I'm a person who's on camera every single day, so people get to see me, at different versions of me, and I hear it, and it actually motivates me into like, okay, I got to get down so that I can inevitably get up, because if I keep getting up, these tweets are going to come in bulk, and I don't want that in my life, okay? So it's actually, now I don't think people should do it to other people, but for me, it's actually a nice little motivation. Like, they're right, I'm going to do this. You think Bill Belichick heard everybody saying, this guy stinks? Do you think he heard everybody saying that the Patriots were going to suck forever? I don't know Bill Belichick at all, but I would assume there is a chance that he did hear what people were saying, and he goes, oh, is that right? Now, that might be a misread by me because I do not know him, but do you think he heard all that? And does that factor into any of his, like, we need to expedite this whole process of getting back to greatness?
I think what he saw was a bad team last year. He knew it. I mean, he knew it, but he was hamstrung. He couldn't do anything. I think when you read his quotes about how they and he couldn't really change the cap, I think no one needed to tell him his team was terrible last year. No one needed to tell him that you can't play Ryan Izzo as your starting tight end. That's all he had. No one needed to tell him that, his skill players weren't dynamic and could make plays. So I think he's a realist. And one thing about Belichick that I've always admired about him is you could tell him the truth, and he doesn't want to hear some superlatives that you throw his direction. He wants you to tell him the truth. And the truth was they're no good. I think any other coach in that team would have won 3 games. He won 7, and so I think it was one of his better coaching jobs with really a very untalented, undescriptive team. And I think he realized he had to do it. Look, would he rather bottom fish? He'll start bottom fishing now, sure. But he needed to get better, and he strategically got better. The middle of the field. When he came into Cleveland in 1991, he handed me a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, when he goes in the Hall of Fame, I'll give it to the Hall of Fame. It said basically how he wanted to build a team with the ability to control the football field down the middle. That's all he's done.
Do you have a picture of that? Do you have a picture of that piece of paper?
Yeah, I do. It's in my office downtown. I'll set a picture of it to you. Yeah,
yeah,
when
you
I go
should tweet that.
tomorrow,
yeah, you should tweet that out, because that is how he's building this team right now. Like
down the middle, right? It's it's really not a secret. It's really straight down the middle where the tight ends control. Tight ends in football are like the knights in the chess game. They're so versatile. They can do so much. So if Belichick gets in 12 personnel with Smith and Henry, now do you play nickel to that? Do you play base to that? How do you want to match up? You want to play that? Well, they're
the fucking screen game.
So there's all different variations.
Bro, the screen game, they're allegedly in for a running back right now, Chris Carson, potentially Leonard Fournette. Do you think they'll get one of those deals?
It's going to be those 2 guys. The guy that I think is a target for teams to go get is, and I can't believe Denver did this, is Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay is the Wes Welker. Now, here's the other point I wanted to make today before we get there. In 2004 or 2005, the Patriots lost to your Colts, Pat, in a conference championship game.
Yup, hell yeah.
Remember?
I was in high school.
After the game, they had to fly to Hawaii because back then you had a coach in the Pro Bowl if you lost the conference championship game. When they got to Hawaii, that was not a vacation for those Patriot coaches. They were meeting every morning at 6 o'clock, and they were going over their team, and they were preparing for the next year. And they came out of those meetings with a strategic plan, and that plan included Wes Welker. That's how Wes Welker got there. So what he's doing this year is no different than what he did years ago. People just don't remember it. So I think that's the case, and I think this is what you'll see. The running back, Lindsey, how they only tendered him his first right of refusal. It opens up a possibility. Some team can come off from a 1-year cap number at $7 million, and how do the Broncos match that? He's a great nickel back, a great running back that I think people go after. The other guy, Mike Davis at Chicago, I think he's an outstanding player. I would look at those 2 guys first.
Okay, so they're saying they're going to add a running back up there in New England. There's a bunch of guys that are still available with
the running back. It's non-existent. Nobody wants to pay for a back. I mean, Aaron Jones is a weapon. He's not a running back. He's a weapon. I've said that many times. He got paid because he can influence the passing game. That's why I like Lindsey so much.
Hey, you think Kyle Van Noy's going back to New England?
Ooh.
I did not hear that. He might be, but I haven't heard that.
Why?